Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about another shooting that occurred out here in the Detroit area in Southfield. There was a double shooting outside of the Bloom Lounge. And of course, I've been saying to the governing class for a long time now, if you give me my rightful place and you pass my war on poverty plan, you'll see a lot less of this stuff. And on top of them rejecting that argument, they are actually more responsible for these shootings than you think they are. So the victim's name was Alexandra Fields, and there's a lot of connections between her name and my videos. I've recently been discussing Genesis. I've been working on certain video series that have to do with Genesis, and that goes back to Cain killing Abel in the fields. And of course, you have a place in Oakland, back in California, where I'm from. I'm actually born in San Jose, like 45 minutes, an hour away from Oakland. They are called the killing fields, and I'm sure in other states they have something similar. The lounge was called the Bloom Lounge. The reporter that I came across with the video clip, is about a 2-minute video clip on YouTube. His name was Randy Wimbley. Randy, Y, M for magic, B lay. And for those of you who doubt the M magic connection, I brought this up before. A neighbor who was, interviewed, one of the two people interviewed in the video clip, her name was Linda McDonald. So she was a white woman, the other woman was black. And they were saying how there's yelling in the morning and, like 2 o'clock in the morning, what have you, when lounges get out or whatever the rules are around here, middle of the night, early morning. And that they've had a lot of problems with this lounge. And as you can imagine, there's a significant amount of homicides that occur in Detroit and in the Detroit area. Detroit itself is 75% black, last I read, and Southfield is 77% black. And so the government, again, refuses to work with me. Okay, I'm the top martial artist. For those of you who don't know what's going on here, martial is marital scrambled. I, Christ, and the bridegroom. Right? See Psalm 19 and connected to Psalm 18 and Exodus 15:3. The Lord is the word, the Lord is his name. Isaiah 42:13. The Lord marches out as a champion and raises the battle cry like a warrior, and so on and so forth. We see in Isaiah 42:13. So God in me. And Proverbs 34 puts it together for you a bit better than that. See the New Living Translation. Who holds the wind, right? The Spirit of God in his fists, right? And who has gone up to heaven and come back down in that martial art spirit, that martial art way, monotheistic martial art way? That's me, Christ, the top martial artist, and top martial artist ever possible to detect breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains, ruling out people in the future. And my top martial artist challenge overkilling than on the top martial artist ever. That and my world record speed on record. And my top martial arts challenge is still going. It's on its 13th year by the year. I'm the son of 2 doctors, one a brain surgeon, and Kuro Obi means black belt. Obi in Igbo, my father's tribe, means King Heart Hut Essence Center Temple Core, and I'm from the Eri or Horus or Christ royal family of the Igbo tribe. Okay, and Obi, the word Obi, right? Kuro Obi in Japanese and other languages means black belt. Kuro meaning black. Obi meaning belt. Obi is a sign of rank. And again, Obi in Igbo means King Heart Hut Essence Center Temple Core. Has to do with rank, among other things. And so you see that these connections there. I forgot what I was going to say. Beyond that, I'm kind of focused on this case, but I had to kind of put that in there so you understand who I am and why it centers around me and why I'm concerned with the economy all over the world, the global economy, the American economy, the Detroit economy, right? I've moved here from California, and I think that it's very disturbing when I look around and I see what stores there are and there aren't, and I see the state of the roads. I see homeless people, during the winter. It's very disturbing. Abandoned buildings and things I was aware of to some degree before, but there's nothing like going to somewhere new and seeing how it looks in that new place. And so, I'm saddened to see that the government basically wants black women, like all women on the planet, to prostitute themselves. And of course, you see in Revelation, there's the prostitute and the two beasts, and then there's the devil, the ancient serpent, the devil in Revelation. And the prostitute stands for the Babylon system, okay, that is the kind of occult system that the West adopted and the whole world adopted that has brought about these things. I would like to really briefly touch on slavery here. At the core of slavery was Babylon's system. It wasn't just white people feeling greedy. It was specifically satanic. Whites, Jews, and LGBT people of white skin who were feeling greedy, and they brought in other races. Some Native Americans owned slaves. If I'm not mistaken, some blacks in America owned slaves, and blacks abroad to some degree, and the forms of slavery were different. That's why when the Klan arises under Nathan Bedford Forrest, the first Klan, there's three of them after the Civil War, okay, they start wearing these occult outfits, and we see that the second Klan is said to start be under William Joseph Simmons, who had 4 to 6 million members. It was founded by this guy who was said to be in several dozen fraternities. Some people try to refute that, but it's safe to say that that's the case, that that person was involved in fraternities who are structured in a way that's similar to Freemasonry, what have you. So, and of course, the word racist is like the word rapist. And there's a lot of things that prove my point. The word conscience, right? So having a clear conscience, for example, versus having a guilty conscience. The word conscience is spelled con-science, right? Con, and the second part of the word is science, and that's not a coincidence. And that's connected to the idea of being conscious of something, right? Being aware, having a certain ability to consent. And the word consent starts with the word con, like condescending and conniving. And these things aren't a coincidence here. So obviously, again, the word martial is marital scrambled as in marriage. Okay, people get married in churches. So I'm very concerned with sexual immorality as I am concerned with all sins. And recently, some guy went to Sin City, right, Vegas, did an interview, and some person said that, he would kill Jesus. Okay. What I would say to that person is, you're welcome to pick up a weapon, maybe a knife, and see me toe to toe. Maybe we go to another country so, the American government doesn't feel so offended by it. And you're welcome to try if that's really how you feel. Now, I'm not some knucklehead or something, but I do take offense to that person saying that. That was uncalled for. I don't know the person, never did anything to that person. It's no excuse to assume that the false image of Christ is Jesus and that God is magically what he's not, which is an unfair ruler. And it's not fair to assume that I'm unfair and that your problems are somehow my fault. That's stupid. With that being said, I do not, wish to kind of act tough unnecessarily. I know that there's a lot of gangs and organized groups and cults and social clubs involved in the various sex trades and the various underworld enterprises that are occurring here in the Detroit area. But I am here to do God's work and to chastise people accordingly. And I would like everyone to rally for my war on poverty plan and to stop committing any crimes. I want you to stop killing each other. And no offense to anybody other than the offense that God intends. But if you choose to continue to be criminals and to continue to help the New World Order, whether you're a corrupt cop, whether you're a gang member, whether you're a Freemason who calls shots in the area, or whoever calls shots in the area, there will be more punishment added to your souls. That is what's fair here. And I urge you all to do the right thing because God is love, and God is a God of justice, and true love is derived from justice. And we see that the king of Gerar, whose name was Abimelech, was chastised by God for unwittingly taking Abraham's wife Sarah after Abraham had lied to him. Well, to some degree he lied because he said that she was his sister, which she was, but he lied by not admitting that she was also his wife, not being forthcoming about that. So God warned Abimelech and said, hey, you're going to die for that. And Abimelech said, well, I have a clear conscience. I didn't know. He said, I know you didn't know. That's why I've spared you to this degree, spiritually speaking. And so we see that at some point, Abraham prays for Abimelech and for his nation, not just for him. Because what your leaders do affect you. The cultures you choose to be a part of do affect you. And when he prays for them, they are then able to have children. So if you want to open your Bibles, Genesis chapter 20, verse 16. To Sarah, he said, I'm giving your brother 1,000 shekels, that is about 25 pounds or about 12 kilograms of silver, This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you. You are completely vindicated. And keep in mind that he didn't have sex with her, mind you. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves, so they could have children again. Okay, so they're kind of a grouping. You know, some of his slaves might not approve of what happened, or they might say, hey, what's that have to do with me? But since they were on board, right, they're part of that grouping. They might have been out of town, what have you. They're automatically affected. And so was the whole nation, because in a sense, the nation, okay, they're his slaves, in a sense, his servants, because he's the king of that nation. I know a lot of you have a serious chip on your shoulder for various reasons because of slavery. Maybe you're white and you're from a long line of slave masters. Maybe you're black and you're from a long line of people who helped them. Maybe you're from a long line of people who are slaves and disenfranchised. And that's rather heartbreaking and unfortunate. But you need to get over that. You need to put God first. You need to do what's right. You need to give up your sinful ways. I'm not some kind of square idiot in the church who's a hypocrite. I'm the top martial artist ever possible. After generations and generations and hundreds and thousands of years of my family scrambling to be righteous, God set me apart and honored me and my family with that title, with that reality. And I urge you all to scramble and do something you can be proud of, so you can look back at the timeline of your life and say, at that point, I changed for the best. The sooner the better. I urge you all to stop creating the circumstances where people kill each other at these clubs and these lounges and at these bars and in the street. Okay, this has been going on for a long time. They talk about breaking the cycle. You're supposed to honor God and I. Whether you're in the church, a Freemason, a governing class person, a gang member, you're supposed to accept that I have a right to say it's time to stop. You're supposed to honor God and my title and who I am, and first and foremost honoring God, and you're supposed to accept that. You're not supposed to be jealous like Set, the deity Set from Egypt, who's a deity of jealousy and confusion and rape by deception. There's a reason why Horus is the archetype of Pharaoh. Horus is the god of war in that system. That system that him as well, but Moses learned before he said to, in a sense, refine that system. In a sense, he's just explaining it a certain way, which is pretty much equally as confusing as the Egyptian system. To make a long story short, the true form of Horus is the true form of Jesus. And you've seen countless fake forms of Horus and fake forms of Jesus. But Set is basically every evil you can imagine. He has various forms. So don't be like Set. Set is not a deity of men. He's a deity of worms who play magic card games like a punk. Like that's why Ronald McDonald looks like a sissy. And he says, do you believe in magic? Because magic is for punks. Magic is for bitches. Men stand firm for what's right. Look up ver. Ver in virtue means man. Ver in virtue means man. And the word ver is like the word veer. Veer away from your sinful paths and walk in the way of being a man. Walk in wisdom along the paths of righteousness and justice. Proverbs 8:20. One last thing, the reporter's name was Randy Wimbley. So there's also Ra, which to the Egyptians means the sun, symbolizing God. And in Hebrew, Ra means evil. And in the Bible, I believe it's Isaiah who says, woe to you who call good evil and evil good. Okay, and notice that Ra, they're literally using the word Ra when they say, woe to you who call, good Ra, and Ra good, but referring to Ra as evil in the Hebrew language. Now, Ra has also been called Re, which rhymes with gay, because there's people who mock. There's people who mock because they're not using their heads. So in Genesis 21, Sarah is said to have laughed in an innocent way that God had granted her a child. And Ishmael, who was the son of Hagar, who was a servant of Abraham, who was Sarah's husband, mocked Isaac and Sarah. And this is a pretty important part in the Bible here. It connects to a lot of things. I'm not going to go over those things. Okay. But one of the things it connects to is Proverbs 22:10, which says, drive out the mocker and out goes strife, quarrels and insults are ended. So we see that people are mocking. And so when we see Randy Wembley, the wordplay in his name that he's probably not aware of, right? Because they kind of set the stage for things to play out a certain way. And they picked that victim because of her name was Alexandra Fields. And it's a message to me and to other people aware of this case, for example. And the message takes on new meaning when people aren't as much in the know as I am because of it centering around me. I'm not in any cult or secret society. So his name was Randy, or he is Randy Wembley, which is Ra, meaning evil, and D-Y or N-Y-D, and Y being, it's saying why be a man, right? Like with the word Yah, you get Y-A for alpha, and the H is the ancient symbol for the fence. And it's also Y-Ha, so they're laughing because they're on some bitch-ass shit, okay? And sometimes I use the curse words. I kind of try to hesitate because I'm talking about God, but that's how I really express myself. It's how I've talked my whole life. And I don't think that it's that much of a problem because the B word is a female dog, and Christ is a character in the story, for example, said he did not come for the dogs to the Canaanite woman, referring to people who are in rebellion. Not just, it wasn't about race, it was about her rebellion, about her distance from the divine order. So anyway, so you get the Ra and YD, and then the Y, magic B, lay. So they basically want these sisters. I'm sure you've seen a lot of these gang members change and they become these gender neutral guys and so on and so forth. Some of them have a little man complex, right? I don't care about height. My grandfather was a very great man on my father's side, was a shorter gentleman. Okay, I don't care about height. But this is part of what's going on here. You got these kind of little Jews. You have these tall, skinny English people. You have various types of people out there. You have gays who are skinny and weird and kind of uncoordinated. Okay, no offense to the LGBT community other than the offense that God intended. And they kind of team up together and try to control things. Okay, when there's a reason why a king wears a sword and Christ is called the Lion of Judah. Okay, and it's a Royal African falcon martial order. The falcon is a symbol of Pharaoh, it's a symbol of horse, it's a symbol of the top martial arts as it flies it dies at 242 miles an hour, right? The word faster rhymes with the word master. And of course you have groups like the Eastern Star where there's females trying to fill males' roles. And you have all these people arguing that gender is magically different than sex, and they cite different cultures like Greece and so on and so forth. And the Athens and Sparta, where they had different conceptions of masculinity, to say that gender is more, according to them, subjective, and that sex is what you're born with. And they say all these kind of things. They talk about non-binary. So what they're doing is trying to confuse things, right? Baal is a deity of confusion, and his Egyptian counterpart is Set, his Greek counterpart is Zeus, his Roman counterpart is Jupiter. Jupiter. And Jupiter and Juno are Zeus and Hera's counterpart. And Juju is West African witchcraft, connects to voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, like it connects to the whole occult, basically. So when you look at the wordplay, it is sound. When you've been working with it for a while, maybe you're a witch, maybe you're a Freemason, maybe you're an investigator who investigates, maybe you're a researcher researching serial killers and occultists, and maybe you're a Crowley fan. There's a lot of different groups that understand the connection between a magic spell and spelling, and people who argue that words have power. If you don't believe me, look it up. Look up chaos magic and occult cut-ups. And when you kind of connect it all together, right, Set is a deity of chaos and so on and so forth, that you see the Bible is Bible, but the truth is in there. It's just coded. And you see these modern occultists who talk about how things are hidden in plain view. So things are, like the Bible is basically telling you the truth. It's just coding it in a way to mislead you so they can say, it's right there, and they're not smart enough to see it. And there's some kind of, bookworms, right? The worm is the archaic word for the snake, which connects to the dragon, right? Satan is the snake in the garden, and he's the ancient serpent, the ancient dragon in Revelation. Okay, the dragon that appears as a sign in the sky who pursues the woman and her child. And if you have any questions about that, put in the comments. Any questions about anything, put in the comments. So we see that these things are very connected. And I'm sure you can tell that, I'm 44 years old. I'm a man who has done a lot of research. I've been making videos on YouTube for 17 years by the year. In August, it'll be 17 years. August 31st will be 17 years to the day. Okay, and I have like 16,000 videos out. And I've been sabotaged. They've altered videos, changed the way I look, changed my voice, what have you. They've covertly drugged me. They've done all kinds of things to try to mock me. But at the end of the day, I'm the top martial artist ever. Like I said, maybe in 2012, 15, I said, I'm Haru and you're a bunch of bitches. Speaking to my oppressor, what have you. Okay, so there's nothing they can do. Doing stupid, you know, fraternity pranks to the top martial artists ever is something no one can respect. If we were to look at the top 10% of men that ever lived, especially African warriors, black men, what have you, okay, in no time flat, they would give me the utmost respect, and they would not respect them. They give them less respect than they otherwise would because they're persecuting me and acting like bitches. And I hold that to be a very obvious truth. Thank you. Real fast, I'm not racist. I'm not a racial supremacist. I'm a moral supremacist. The reason why I said especially African warriors, especially the 10% of black men that are the most respectable, the most masculine, the most warrior-like, the most virtuous, the most insightful, what have you. It has to do with the fact that there's racial boundaries in society, okay? And people struggle with these issues. Sometimes they struggle seeing good in another race, or they struggle with the idea that Christ is actually black. I'm actually, mulatto. My dad is Nigerian, very black, so I look very similar to a lot of light-skinned African Americans because there was something like 1 million Nigerians that came to America during the transatlantic slave trade of the Americas, right? And they talk about the ship's manifest and manifest destiny. So just like you have Kush and the Kushites, you have a king or an ancestor, right? The Igbo king and the embodiment of the Igbo king and the Igbos. So just like with Galatians 3:28, there's no Jew or Gentile, there's no races, right? In that sense. So there's just those who obey God and those who don't. We see that in Mark as well. And we see that in Proverbs 17:2, right? A prudent servant will rule over a disgraceful son and share the inheritance as one of the family. So I judge people by the content of their character, and I have thousands of videos that testify to that fact. And that's a key part of my life work. Thank you.